And there's actually 4 that now I'm just talking about: the organic, Rimland, Heartland, and then I didn't put the Domino Theory, but the Domino Theory is it really makes sense. So the first one, and you need to be familiar with the guy who creates these different theories as well. Ratzel's organic theory. Okay, so people start really looking in geography and really start looking at political, geopolitics in the 1800s. You start seeing where Russia, for example, during the Crimean War, one of the most important wars that's never discussed in world history courses, but in the Crimean War, Russia, for geopolitical purposes, basically starts to try to take on the Ottoman Turks. They were weak as crap. It ended up bad for Russia because everyone sided with the Turks rather than side with Russia. But more or less, Ratzel's organic theory states that countries literally have a lifespan. They have a birth, they have a youth, a young, strong, vigorous, growing age. They have they get old and then they start to die. And this happens. It's all figurative, but this happens according to whether or not a country is able to continue to take land. All right, so here's the problem with Ratzel's theory. In order for a country to grow, it has to literally expand its territory, okay, and consume more land. Now, if you look at what Hitler was doing leading up to World War II, Ratzel is a German geopolitical theorist, okay? So it makes sense that Hitler's going to look at his work and say, oh, let's do this. And he starts trying to take area where German people live in order to grow Germany for the German people, okay? It's a classic example of the application of Ratzel's organic theory. The problem is, in order for countries to grow, according to this theory, they have to conquer other countries, which leads to geopolitical aggression. Nobody likes that, right? The second of these models we're going to look at, and y'all, if you gotta go ahead and go. I am going to keep on going until I'm done. It might take me 5 or 6 minutes over, and y'all welcome to stay with me. But Alfred Mackinder's Heartland Theory, 1904. So at the very beginning of the 1900s, you've got this guy talking about this area called a heartland or a pivot area within a large continent of Eurasia, which he controlled. He called the World Island. Okay, I'm going to show you a map in a second. But tons of resources in agriculture would have existed within the heartland area. Okay, so whoever controls the heartland controls the world because of access to types of mineral resources, all sorts of resources, agriculture, a lot of food. Here's the quote from Mackinder's writings: Who rules Eastern Europe commands the heartland. Who rules the heartland commands the World Island. Who rules the World Island controls the world. It's literally a plan for world domination, like Dr. Evil and all that. How cool is that? Here's a map of it. This whole area is the World Island. This is Eurasia. The pivot area is the area kind of where modern day Russia is. And then you've got this area on the outside, which is usually called the Rimland, in this case, the inner or marginal crescent. Okay, and then you get everything else on the outside. So whoever controls the pivot area would have the power, due to its surplus of resources, to control everything on the outside of the World Island. And if you control all this, according to Mackinder and the Heartland Theory, you control the world, baby. Woo! All right. So this became a problem for people like in the United States and the West during the Cold War. We didn't like to hear that Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union, which was basically, controlled the heartland. All right, we didn't like to hear about how he's going to dominate the world. That sucked. So we start looking at another geopolitical theorist named Spykman, and Spykman creates what we call the Rimland Theory in 1942. So right at the end of World War II, just before the Cold War era, it was a contrasting philosophy to the Heartland Theory. In contrast to Heartland Theory, according to the Heartland Theory, the Soviets are empowered to control the world because of their domination of the heartland. But the Rimland Theory states that the control of the Rimland can prevent world domination from the heartland. So wait a second, there is a weakness. So according again to the Rimland Theory, if you control this, you can cut off he who controls the heartland. You guys ever heard of the policy of containment? Because that's what you're listening to. All right. So when you have the blue is the first world. We talked about this a few weeks ago. The green is the third world. Hashtag third world problems, right? But usually we don't hear about the second world. That's because the second world doesn't exist anymore. It was the Soviets and their allies. So here is the cutoff between NATO and the Warsaw Pact right here in Eastern Europe. This is the Iron Curtain, y'all. This is the border that Churchill called Iron Curtain, and we started a policy of containment where we literally wanted to control the Rimland and prevent the expansion of the Soviet communist communism into these Rimland countries. And so this is the justification for the proxy wars that we fought in Vietnam and Korea and Afghanistan and Cuba and so on and so forth. All right, because that right there we just now looked at. This is the policy of containment. That's what we got from Spykman's Rimland theory. All right. Finally, the last one I wanted to talk about is the Domino Theory, and this again is a Cold War mentality. What we kind of thought as the United States is if we lose one country to communism, the other countries nearby are going to fall to communism as well. So if we lose Vietnam, Korea is going to fall. If we lose Korea, Afghanistan is going to fall. If we lose so on and so forth, right? That's the domino theory. That's the reason why I told you it makes a lot of sense, really. And there's not a whole lot more to say than that.